All right.
It's
Hi.
wonderful.
They're going to be weirded out because I'm going to say Tiffany and Tay Nippany and all the different names I have for you. So, but so yeah, my first thing I want to do, pardon me, is of course every time I cough now, even when I'm by myself, I'm like, I have COVID. I'm sure it's not good. It's been like that for whatever 4 months, so it's not good. But yeah, I just when I thought of what I wanted to talk about, because I'm trying, like I said, I try not to have an agenda, is I wanted to reach out and say, I'm pretty positive you know how, so I'm trying not to use the term amazing to people that I talk with, because then that's like, that's a big word, right? And they get all like, except for maybe some of our friends, mainly pretty much only like 2 or 3 of them, they would be like, that's right, I am amazing. Otherwise, most people are like, oh, that's awkward. So I'm using impactful. I'm trying to use that term impactful. And in the numerous ways you've impacted me specifically is you have always been the biggest heart of almost any of my friends. And I've
Aw.
always loved that. And like, I don't know, I just felt very like, even at the time, I've never, I don't know how to say, not necessarily taking you for granted, because if I hadn't taken you for granted, I would have called you every day. You know what I mean? But I've never felt like, oh yeah, she's my friend. I've always been grateful and honored that, not that you're super picky about, I'm not going to talk to them. I'm not going to, you've gotten more as you've gotten older. You have gotten more picky, but you, for whatever reason, you let me in and you've let me be part of your life. And you are such a sweet, not perfect, and that's okay, but like, loving, caring, authentic person. And that is super impactful because, um, when I was super excited to have Donna know you, and I was super excited to have any of my friends didn't know you to know you. And then
Aw.
the biggest reason why I really took the job at GrowthWorks was, a lot of it was because I was like, well, she's awesome and she's there. So, I'll try it. Even if it wasn't, the way, I wanted, and in a position I wanted and all that stuff. And even though it didn't work out, slash, I was not responsible. So accountability, it didn't work out because I didn't work. Um, because it was a easier route than saying, yeah, this isn't for me. Like, nothing, once again, being immature and not as comfortable being authentic, it would have been the better move. I don't like saying should, but it would have been the better move to acknowledge to my superiors, I am grateful for the opportunity. I adore the people. I love the people there.
Mhm.
It's just, it's not my jam.
Yeah.
And and that's okay. I mean, it's one of those things, like, not everything is for everybody and not everybody's for everybody.
Right.
So, I mean, I was very grateful that I was able to do it. It was a wonderful experience. And it's funny because I actually thought about it, um, with the whole Black Lives Matter and this and that, because years ago when the Black Lives Matter thing started, I'm sitting there kind of going, I mean, I know I have some biases, but not necessarily just towards Black people, just, in general, like, I have biases because, if it's not in my immediate circle, there's always almost like the older you get, the more jaded we become, I think, so you're like, you're not my best friend, so I don't know if your intentions are good, like that. But I also didn't, because I'm sitting there going, I have Black friends, I have Spanish friends, I have Asian friends. I don't, like, that's never bothered me.
Mhm.
So I took it lightly to an extent, even though, sitting with Hugh and being witness in Livonia to profiling. And I mean, just,
Yeah.
you know, um, like you having mixed kids, never even like it wasn't like, oh, her kids are mixed. Those are her kids, like whatever.
Right.
But this last time, I think what I liked is it did kind of working, and working in where we worked with and who we worked with. Majority of our population was not Caucasian, and we had a lot of different kids, but like I could see how people could say it was a race thing, but I'm sitting there going, it's mainly socioeconomic. Like you look at it, and I remember thinking, if we put these kids in lockup, that's going to be a better alternative for them to succeed than where they are currently in their situation. I remember like thinking, is that messed up that I want this kid to go to, I'm going to advocate that this kid get put away somewhere for a while to the judge because it's the best thing for this kid.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, that's weird. Like that was also when I was kind of like, I don't know if this is for me.
Yeah, it's definitely different because you're looking at a lot of different, like just their basic needs and all of that, and you take all of that out, and it's definitely a tough job. That's the toughest job when you have such a say so in their life and where they're going to live and how it's going to be, and it can take them two different roads really easily. So yeah.
And I think I did take for granted the ability for you to do your job well, because I remember knowing you telling me about it, and then all of a sudden when I went there, I was like, boy, I am not handling this like Tay handles this. I am not doing it. And I really remember thinking that, going, I know I was fairly naive to an extent, but I'm sitting there going, Tay is such a sweet person, and she's still like pretty positive and pretty easygoing, and I'm sitting there like, oh my gosh, this is horrible. And I just had a pit in my stomach, and and then I felt like even no matter what I was going to do was no good and stuff. But
that's
so
not
in
true.
that
You did a lot of good.
Well, I once again, what I tried to do, I did the best I tried. When I tried, I did my best. But in that aspect, that is just another way you were impactful to me, is that, I don't think I told you that because, for a while I was ashamed of how I left and all that fun stuff, which like I'm over that now. But
the funny thing is I don't even remember.
I know. Well, I know. Once again, I know our issues are in our heads mostly, and you're like, oh, everybody's been thinking about me, and they're like, no, I thought you were thinking about me, and you're like, oh, that's weird.
Yeah, it's funny because everybody there always talks about how much they love Jeff, and like when you were there last summer, they're so excited. So it's funny how we're harder on ourselves. And
oh yeah. And so I just wanted to, and instead of what the opportunity for COVID has given me is to be more myself. Instead of just sending a text message and saying, hey, I'm thinking about you,
mm-hmm.
I'm like, well, guess what? You have the time.
You're coming to my show.
Yeah. And because I also, I don't have a lot of followers and, a lot of views and stuff. And at some point, I'm sure people are going to watch it. But I've been so impacted in a great way. I wanted to share the people who are impactful to me with other people, because I think that's one of those things, like, I know at some level you're aware you make a difference. I know that. I know you also discount the level of which you make a difference. And that's okay, because to an extent, like we've just talked about, you kind of have to temper what we do with an outcome and a desired outcome and what's possible. But you do, like, how you carry yourself, how you the situations without giving away all of your information, a while ago, with your daughter growing up, number one, the situation surrounding that and what a struggle it was just to be like, some normalcy would be sweet, some not fighting would be wicked. And, in the midst of that, handling, your mom getting sick and your mom passing, who was the bomb, and, the whole time working on making sure, you know, keeping the family together, because that's important. And just these things that I don't think you necessarily take for granted, but I don't think you sit there and put them in a, well, that's a good thing. Cause for you, you're just like, well, that's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm going to do. And that's what that's what impactful people do. So it's just like, they're the people who I've been really blessed around. And once again, I think because God likes me a lot more than I like myself, he's put really awesome people around me. But to be able to, you know, get to know your mom and get to know your dad and your sisters and even your brother once in a while when he would come in. But just to be surrounded by those people is amazing. And what I like about me personally is, even though I didn't always say it and show it, I was always aware of how awesome of an opportunity it was. And that's one of the things I think God's granted me for whatever reason, probably because he takes pity on me because I'm 5'5", but he's like, I've always been aware of how awesome I really have it to an extent. Now, at least with people, like, you know, this is my voice, my hair's, what's left of it is graying now. And I'm like, great. But I also have, you know, I have an amazing wife and I have two ridiculous, amazing kids who are still kids and is still, oh yeah, 14 and 11 and a half. 11, you remember 11 and a half-year-old girl? Yeah, you do. Because I remember about that time going, that's sassy. And yeah, I've got sass too, but she's also, I wouldn't trade it for the entire world. So that's the main part I wanted to do, is I wanted to let you know in a way that you can't just faff me off and be like, oh, whatever, because that's what you do. That you are super important to me. And, you know, I very much have valued our friendship for the entirety of it, and all the different being pulled away and not being there and, you know, all the stuff. It's still, you know, I remember our conversation, that just popped in my head, our conversation at Denny's when you were pregnant, when you first told me you were pregnant, and me saying something and feeling like I was being judgmental, but not trying to be judgmental because I was judging. I was just like, you were so important to me. I just wanted you to know that I cared about you, and, you know, that, you know, whatever, just, you know, you're pregnant. That's awesome. We're going to have a kid. And once again, I remember even saying, like, we're going to have a kid. Really? I don't know how much you played a part in that, but think that, like, that being my thought process. And, you know, because I just wanted to make sure you understood how important you were to me. And with me recentering on God and recentering on, you know, having a positive impact on people, and trying to not, like, attempting to help them realize their potential and realize their special qualities and realize their uniqueness. That's why I'm trying to do these more, and not just, you know, send you a text, say, hey, thinking of you, which is nice. I'm not going to discount that. That is nice. But it's also, I think, important to occasionally take time to smell the flowers in the garden you're building. Otherwise, why are you building the garden? And so, you know, that whole thing being said, I love you, and I've loved you for a long time, and I appreciate that, you know, like I said, God put you in my life, and it was an interesting, once again, the person he put me, how I met you, and then all of a sudden being like, oh wait, I'm not even dating that girl anymore, but my friend's still here, like, and then her and I are still kind of friends. So it's kind of cool, right? Like how things work out. Because once again, God's answers are way smarter than my prayers. But I think it's just awesome. It's just awesome. And so I have too much love for people to not tell them now, if that makes sense. And so, but I also think you were a big part of that, because I remember, going through with your mom, and you being aware, like, for most of us, and I don't know if it's better or worse, but we don't know when that time is up with we'll even just say parents, but loved ones, right? We just don't know. And you kind of had a, like, no, it kind of no. And the way you lived in it and through it, and like took advantage of, I'm gonna cry, but and I don't mean take advantage in a negative way, but you took the opportunity to really love on your mom and to soak her in, you know. I didn't know this was gonna happen. That's fun. But and making sure Kendall knew her, and just celebrating every day with her, and thinking about your dad, and you're doing the same thing, and you being part of your life has reminded me to not take people for granted, and time for granted. And sometimes, I forget that, especially with my parents living next door, it gets, my mom said something to me yesterday. I had a nice talk with her, and she just kind of said, I feel sometimes left out because I get so busy over here, 30 feet away, and then you pop in my head, and I'm like, I'm going to spend time with my mom, and I'm going to go spend time with my dad. And that's molded me, you know what I mean? And seeing how the way you kind of, I don't want to say, the way you parented Kendall to be like, this sucks for me, this sucks for you, this sucks for everybody, this sucks for my mom. But here's do the best you can with what you have when you have it.
Yeah.
And
That's a good
so
reminder for all of us.
it really is, and it's just like, these people having conversations, and me taking a look at myself and realizing, just because I don't have as many biases, because I have a lot of friends who have mixed kids with whatever, like, I think it's weird because we're all mixed, like, white people didn't come from the US. But I don't want to point that out to people because they'll freak out. Unless we're Native American, I don't think we were here, but whatever. So, and it, once again, I think that has always been, a love thing, right? Like, if people are impactful to me, I don't sit there and say, well, they're impactful to me because they're a girl or a boy, or the people they date, or the people, And so, and that's one of the things I felt kind of directed to talk to you about, at least, is because in my head, I'm sitting here thinking, well, I'm not prejudiced, I'm not racist, I'm not, but having a psychological background, I'm biased. And the older I get, or the more I'm in one area without challenging that area, the more we think that area is everyone's area, if that makes sense. And it's not. I understand, like, I wasn't the only, well, one of the few Black kids in Livonia growing up in, I didn't have to deal, like, one of my friends, she posted about her son, who's I think 8 maybe, or something like that, 6 or 8. I'm actually doing one of these with her tomorrow. And, she said, this is just my baby, right? And then knowing, being a mixed race boy, especially, if nothing changes, he's going to have to deal with this. This is going to be a reality for him. And how, as a parent, right, I started crying reading this. Both my kids are pasty white. Well, not now, the summer come. I don't know how they get English tanning from their mom when they don't know sons in England. But, and just sitting there thinking, to an extent, selfishly, how grateful I am that I don't have to deal with that my kids don't ever have to deal with that. But knowing that that's a reality and having empathy the way I do, obviously, I'm a super not sensitive person. I always have it together. Which I think is why God also made me small, because then people are like, oh, they don't have these high expectations. I should be really manly. They're like, oh, that guy, he is a unicorn. That's okay. But and that also made me think of you, and knowing that for you, it's never been anything, but knowing it's a reality because of who you're married to and your kids and all that stuff, and just being like, well, first, like, there's no better way to say it, but that's, as I could tell Allison, that sucks. It's just stupid. And I don't use a stupid word, but it's stupid. But I think to an extent also being as loving and intelligent and emotionally available, right? Which is for you, you're like, but you are, even though you don't always like your emotional availability, is that, or your sensitivity, I'll say, your sensitivity. Because, well, I guess I can't, even if I whisper, this is on recording, so they'll know that you're sensitive. I'm sorry. I gave away that secret. Is that you, whether it's fair or not to have to deal with, you're strong enough and loving enough that it's just like, it's kind of like another part of life. It's not like, oh, this is such a struggle. But I think, sitting there, it just reminded me of how amazing or how impactful of a person you are. And like, that is awesome. And I wanted to take a moment to just acknowledge it and tell you and reconnect with you, because even if I saw you every day, I wouldn't be close enough for my liking, because you are really one of the good ones, and you're always my tippy canoe. And so, I think that's all I wanted to tell you. Yeah.
I appreciate that. Well, you are equally as impactful on me, and you know that. I mean, remember you taught me how to hug. Remember that?
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Well, I forced you. I don't know if that's really good.
You broke down the barrier, right?
Okay.
You built me back up. But the one thing I always it always sticks out to me, especially when I'm going through like a difficult time or moment, is you had told me, and I remember like we were driving down Ford Road. We were at Ford and Morton Taylor. So I remember us being in the car. Like I remember physically seeing the area, and you were talking about I think a person you may have dated or something, and there was something, and you said the one thing I always have to remind myself is that no matter every person you meet, you walk away with something new, something different. And I was like, huh? And I was like, what? You said every encounter you have like changes you in a way. And I was like, okay, all right. And it really like sits in with me. So, and interestingly enough, we had went through something really, really difficult with Kendall back in September, and it was really scary. And I remember we were sitting in this waiting room, and Curtis just looked at me and he said, what is God trying to teach us right now? And I was like, have you been talking to Jeff? Because this is so, and he's like, what are we supposed to learn from this? In the midst of like this, really like crazy, chaotic moment where we're, and it was just like, okay. And there's like a sense of peace that came over me. Like, okay, God's got this. It's okay. Like, we're going to be okay. And that kind of always goes back to like you with your faith and everything, because obviously we've all questioned things and like why and how, and it doesn't make sense. It's not fair. But having that faith piece, which I think you've really driven in me since, I mean, God, how long have we been friends? 20 years? Maybe
Yeah.
21?
Before I knew you before I knew Donna.
Yeah.
And that was 2001. So yeah, we were like 90 something.
Yeah. So, I mean, and I was telling my friend Brandy.
Missed that.
that I was doing this with you today, and she was like, oh, "You still talk to Jeff?" And I was like, "Yeah, not as much as like we want to, but we definitely keep connected." I was talking about last summer and everything what you did for our program, and she even said like he's just got such an amazing personality and spirit. Like he's so good to be around. He just brings a smile when you bring up his name, and I was like, he does. So you are super impactful, and I think that you don't always recognize that, but I appreciate that you shared with me. That stuff means a lot, you know.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
That's funny. I like that. Because it is weird, right? Like, I sit there and I'm just, because it doesn't feel like 20 something years.
Mm-mm.
And I'm going, oh, yeah, no, that's been 20 some years. Like, that's what?
Right. How much we've grown. You remember me sitting in your class at Eastern, the
Yeah,
psychology of sex class, remember?
you
And
came
the
with me.
professor came up and asked me a question. I was like, oh, I'm not even in this class. I was so scared.
I forgot about that. That is tremendous. That is fan-stinking-tastic. Oh, that is good. See that? Yeah, stuff like that. I love because I think when I was when I was me-centered / ego-driven, or it was because that's where fairness comes into play, right? It's the ego thing. Like, well, this isn't fair. Do we want to describe like levels of fairness? Because I'm living gold-plated problems, and I'm going, okay, but I'm still a 5'5". Like, and I love that because just changing my perspective. But I think it's cool that you and a big part was how you dealt with your mom was why I'd forgotten that's why I kind of live by that mantra of I'm going to do the best I can with what I have when I get it. And part of it's too, it's Maya Angelou also said, I always destroy this, but it's like we make a decision, and then when we have more information, we make a different decision. And we do the best we can with what we have when we have it. Not everybody does. And I don't take that for granted. Not everybody does, and I don't every day. Like there's some days I'm like, no, life's not fair, and they can screw off. I'm gonna show you. And then God's like, all right, cool. I'll be here waiting. When you stop having your tantrum, we'll get down to business. But and so I think I've been blessed with, like I said, is being aware even at the time of how impactful some people are to me. Not even, I don't think to the extent, because once again, that's like, I'm not Gandhi or the Dalai Lama or something where I just sit there and all the time I'm like, yes, this interaction has changed me, and this interaction has changed me. But I appreciate so much that you said that, because that's my why I'm doing these videos, is because the culmination of interactions that we've had has changed me into a I think a much better person, and person who's very caring and loving and thoughtful. And once again, this is on my good days. Today's one of those, so I'm gonna toot that horn real quick a little bit, and that's just nice. Like I think where I went wrong, or where I go wrong anyway, is when I do like the me-centered thing, is if I'm doing something to get that reaction from Brandy and from you, which some days I do, but most days I really don't, and I think it's funny because when I was telling you beforehand about me almost making myself smaller so that I'm more palatable to people, it's, a lot of people are like, well, you're performing, and yes, I'm manic sometimes. I know this, but most of the time I'm just so happy to be where I am, doing what I'm doing, talking to who I'm talking to, that it's exciting. It's cool. It's, a lot of people don't realize, like, my heart stopped from drugs and like I died. And I was a lockup inpatient, and I was in a runaway shelter, and I was a foster ward of the state because my parents were like, and because most people think. I remember, weren't you there? I don't remember if you were there. You might not have been. Were you with us when we were at the bowling alley in Plymouth? We got kicked out. I don't remember. It was during a day, and there was a bunch of us there, and we got kicked out because, well, I humped the ball return, and but they thought we were drunk, and it was funny because I'm like, so it was all sober people at the time. No, and it was just funny because we were all just being ourselves, right? And
Yeah.
so in what I've decided to do is, because I always felt like I was meant for bigger, and now monetizing this has become quite an interesting challenge because that's what Rhode on now. I'm like, not for sure, but okay. But realistically, what I've done since like just before quarantine, when I recentered, was just embracing my purpose. And my purpose really is to help people see their potential and to see their awesomeness and their goodness and their them, right? And because that geeks me out. Like I get really like just playing with the kids last year, just for that day, it's pretty simple to see which ones were like, well, I'm too cool for school, but this isn't the worst thing we've ever done, and that little dude's weird, but I guess he's okay weird. Like that's kind of how I just am. And it's cool. And I, like I said, I felt honored to be able to make amends by being available and being awesome, even if it was in a different way for you and for GrowthWorks and stuff like that. And it's kind of cool because I went and stopped and wanted to say thank you to my dad's cousin, who's Nancy, who works there. Nancy Greenow.
I don't know.
She's I'm not sure what exactly she does there, but she's been helping out there with the sobriety part, I think, something like that.
Oh yeah.
And
I don't
so
know everybody over.
yeah, well, I mean, she's my cousin. She's been a massage therapist. She's part of the reason why I got into CrossFit. Like weird, and it's just now she's helping out there, and I went, that is so strange. And the world is just interesting.
Yeah.
And when I'm in tune with my purpose, and like you and Curtis said, basically when I'm asking the right questions, like, okay, so what is this? Where am I? What is going on? Because especially when it comes to kids, and the older I've gotten, the longer my kids are older, the more things that happen to them affect me more than things that happen to me, which is good. I guess I'm becoming less selfish. But you're right. It's more meaningful. It's more like, I've lived a good life, but they're just starting and all that fun stuff. And so, and that's another thing I love about my empathy and my sensitivity is, your little Lils popped in my head, and I'm like, I almost had well, that's unfair. Like, stupid, right? I was like, that's just stupid. Why are people? And then I was like, why are people stupid? But once again, we all have shortcomings and issues and all that fun stuff. But I thought it was one of those things that you deserved some positivity and you deserve some acknowledgement of impactfulness. And like I said, I think I'm aware that selfishly, these connections and just the people I know in general are awesome. I'm going to say awesome. I don't care. Okay, whatever. And so it's funny because like when I start thinking of people, I'm going, dude, I gotta like kick ass amount of kick ass people
Yeah.
that it's around, and that is awesome. And so I think, it's just, I don't know, I keep saying the same thing. And one of the things is I watched one of my videos once because it was 1:45, more than once. Otherwise, I've never even watched them because I'm not trying to do it to, create some cool like interview and some whatever drama or anything like that. I just, like I said, my why is to reconnect to people and to help them, or at least acknowledge that they are impactful, whether they tend to take time out, which most of the people, of course, I do connect with because of who they are and how impactful they are. They don't view that the same way. You know what I mean? They're not like, yeah, I know. It's just like, and I can't remember, it drives me nuts. The girl who worked with us, she was on the other side. I think was she Latina? Darker skin, curly hair. I think she had
Danielle?
cancer. Was it Danielle?
Oh, no, Kim.
Kim. Yeah. And she, I remember her having health issues, and I think didn't she pass away?
She did.
But still, she was positive and she was hardworking and she was dedicated. And I would just remember going, dude, she's so much more badass than I am.
She was amazing.
And I love that, right? Like, so it's sad that she's gone, but I don't know if it's a selfish point of view or whatever, but I'm grateful that I was able to be part of that, even if it was for a short time, and exposed to that, because, I love the fact that you and Curtis like literally just had that conversation, because I think maybe that's what the reason was, is to strengthen that connection with you two and just understanding, really we and parents, it's hard too, but we think we're all powerful. We have, as much, that's adorable. We do the best we can. And realistically, like COVID-19, the world stopped. Like it said, no, we're shut down.
Yeah.
And, and having your littles, that must have been interesting too. But, and Donna hasn't killed me yet, so I'm pretty happy. Now I do spend more time in the basement. And she really needs hugging to be a thing again, because she cannot take any more from me. Because not hugging people is killing me.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's a physiological phenomenon. You produce oxytocin when you hug and you connect and you touch people.
It's important.
It is important.
And the world forgot how important it is even before this, So.
I forgot that you were not the biggest hugger.
I wasn't.
Because you were the.
Yep.
That's fantastic. And maybe I'll call Hugh and say, hey, do you remember how bad of a hugger Tiffany was when we met her?
Yeah, you and Phil sat in my mom and dad's family room and made me hug for like an hour. I was like, oh my God.
Oh my gosh, I remember that. We were in the lower level, weren't we?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's fun. Well, for us. That's fantastic. See, that's so good. I'm so happy. I appreciate you taking time. So how is
I appreciate you.
How is Curtis's health? Is it better?
Actually, yeah, we just finally got some good news last month, because the last 6 months his numbers had gone up, his cancer cells, and we were a little bit discouraged and worried. But yeah, he had he had to do it online or whatever, end of May, and his numbers are almost down to 0. So we are really excited. Yes.
I'm sorry, what goes to dynamite? Boom!
But yeah,
that's awesome.
Super. Yes.
Oh, that's cool.
Good things.
That is super good things. You guys deserve it. That's fun.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I love that. So Yeah, I appreciate you taking time to, like I said, just let me talk at you.
I like it. I appreciate it. Like I liked hearing, like it was really good to hear that stuff and kind of there's times when we need to be reminded of some things and it was helpful, you know. I appreciate it. It's
You
gonna
look
fuel
so
me.
good and like, I don't know, you just look, it's just nice.
Thanks.
You're welcome. And that was very nice that you sent Jake a birthday thing. I
Yeah.
always want to do more for Hugh, and then I'm always like, ugh, because I'm doing more for Jacob, and then I'm like, ugh. And then I think of, wasn't her name Tiffany? The other
Tiffany at
615. Yeah,
6:15.
yeah, 615. I remember.
Had a good
I'm
day.
like,
She said they went kayaking that day.
really?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Because I
Yeah.
thought of her too. Because I'm going 615. Because even when I see like 615, I'm always like, hey Jake, it's your birthday. Hey, it's 615's birthday. And then for like I don't know how many years, I kept going, wait, what's her name? And I was like, wait, I think isn't it Tiffany? I'm like, yeah, because I can picture her, but I couldn't remember her
Right.
name. I was like,
That's so
you know.
funny.
So what's one thing that you've done since the quarantine thing that you are proud of?
Um,
Besides not kill anybody,
honest-
that doesn't count. That's a bare minimum.
no, actually just getting my house organized. Like when my house is messy, I'm really grumpy. So like I've taken time to like get it so like we can keep up with it, like, and the kids can. Because my expectations sometimes are a little bit high for them to, clean up. So I've rearranged things and made it more,
User friendly.
yes.
So you put good processes in place. See, that's awesome.
Yeah, I had to because I was like, and Curtis always thinks I'm a little bit ridiculous sometimes. So,
I mean,
um,
you are, but
so
we all are.
yeah, so I would say like that because then I can appreciate some of the stuff I have because sometimes being at home at first, I was looking at everything I wanted to change and getting a little bit like bratty, like, oh, I want to do this, I want to do that. And then finally, like, being like, we worked really hard and this is like what I prayed for so many years. And you're not even like appreciating what you have right now. And I had to like really get myself back to that point because
It's a
I
good
was like,
self-assessment, though.
yeah. And I was like, why am I being a brat? Because I'm like, I want this and I want this. And I was like fancy online shopping. And I'm like, okay,
Yeah,
enough. So
that's
what about
awesome.
you?
Well,
Well, I mean, this obviously.
well, yes, this. Which, wow, I wouldn't even have thought of that. That's kind of funny. But so this wall, this is my workout area in the basement. So
Oh,
after almost 5 years, 4.5 years, the kids and I put that in, and
that's
then
fun.
yeah, it's fun. And then Jacob and I built a shelving unit for organization because I do not do well if if things are already set up, if the process is in place, I can follow those directions most of the time. Creating those, I'm not is not my jam. And so instead of just settling for that, like, I'm not good with computers. Well, that's like saying, oh, well, I struggle with things, and so whatever. No, I'm gonna be better at it then. And so, um, Donna sent me something in February, March, maybe March. Yeah, March, and it was how to build a shelving unit, and I was procrastinating because I was terrified
Yeah.
because my dad was, we're quarantined. We did pretty good because Jake has got asthma, and I have asthma in my lung scar tissue because I was an idiot and smoked when I had pneumonia. Like, 20, I'm invulnerable. And so I was like, well, I don't want to get my kids sick. If it happens to me, that's horrible, but I don't want to do that to Jake and stuff. So I didn't even let my brother come over to help, or my dad was in Florida and stuff. So it was going to be on me I'm not going to blame my 15 or my 14, 13-year-old on if the shelving unit isn't good. And then Donna was like, I don't want any crap in the house. And I was like, understandable, but now you've really whittled it down because I'm not good with stuff. And we made it, and it's awesome. And
Yeah.
I was like, fan-stinking-tastic. Now,
Took you out of your comfort zone, and then you realized you can. Yeah.
shocking, then my comfort zone got a little bigger. Now, what's smart, though, is I didn't immediately go, oh, I'm going to build more stuff. I was like, wow, that was awesome. Is there any other little things that I can do? it wasn't, like, we have to do our deck because the wood we got brand new was rotten. So it's already breaking after 4.5 years. And so
Not good.
realistically, no. I can replace like one or two. I will not do the whole thing and have it be acceptable. That's what I'll say. I could. It's gonna be something, and then by the end of it, wherever the end of it is, it's gonna be just thrown together because I'm gonna be sick of doing it, and I'm just gonna be like, whatever, I'm done with this shit.
That's so funny.
Because I go bratty all the time, so it's fun. Like you're like, why am I being bratty? That's an everyday question for me, several times a day. Like I'm being bratty right now. But yeah, I'm really happy with that, and I guess like I'm just really proud that I am proud of this. I'm proud because to an extent, and I'm really proud. This is the one I'm proud about. April last year, I started doing dad diaries, and it's basically like when I think about the kids, I write just a little blurb about each one and what I was thinking about, or what we did today, or what we talked about, just so they have that, right? Because like I'm trying to get my mom and dad to write stuff and write, memories and write, because you understand more than a lot of people. You that stuff's valuable. And so I was like, especially because, being a parent, when I'm going ballistic and I'm yelling, stop yelling at each other. And you're like, well, that's the opposite of helpful. Or I'm going to yell at you because I love you, even though that's not how I feel towards you. Yeah.
Quarantine's brought the best of my parenting.
I believe you. So that's why I'm grateful, because two is we are outnumbered. Even with even numbers, we're outnumbered. So you are. That's why I'm glad your family's close, because you need them all of them.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I know. That's okay.
Strong-willed girls.
It's funny because even though you were rule follower, you were still pretty stinking strong-willed. And I've met your sisters.
I know.
Your mom did a good job. Listen, your mom did a good job. Your dad gets medals. That's all I'm saying. Like, I would never say it out loud in the house because I was terrified of what was going to happen to me. But literally, like, listen,
Yeah.
he deserves a medal.
He does. I agree.
But yeah, so I like that. And most days I write in it, and it's cool because, like I said, I think, we always, or I always think of, oh, that would be nice to do, or that would be important to me. And it's one of those things, like, if I think something would be important to me and I put it off or I don't do it, I devalue myself. And that's where I get in the situation where there's more struggle. And when the big questions come of, what are we trying to learn here, right? Those are the big questions. If I don't do all the little stuff the right way, the big stuff's not going to be handled well. It's just not, right? Because the daily stuff is the stuff that it's tough to be grateful for my kids every moment of the day, during the day. It's easy to look back and say, like, right when they're asleep, you're like, oh, I love them.
Yeah.
They are the best things ever. And then all of a sudden one wakes up after an hour and you're like, stop being the best thing ever, because now I'm not sleeping. And it's circumstantial and stuff. So yeah, and I love that. And because once again, your impact on me and how you made good use of what time you had. I live by that, which is sometimes I don't want to be stressful or put pressure on you or anything like that, but it like was huge. And it's, I think, once again, I think that's why we've been friends for over 20 years because, you know, you made a difference in my life and it was awesome. And I'm beyond grateful for that. Something as simple as anytime we see, even my kids, when Jake's like, sees Coke stuff, it's super cute. And he's like, hey, you remember that house? And I'm like, yes, I do, buddy. Yes, I do.
That's so funny.
Yeah. But I think that's cool, right? Because it's, you know, like it's like when you're a kid and you have a birthday present or a Christmas present, before you get worried about what other people think, you just want to show everybody.
Right.
And that's what this is. Like, I want everybody to have a little glimpse into you and stuff. So I won't keep you for too long because I'm going to go help my friend's son finish cleaning his garage. But
well, thank you for this. And I like your dad diary. I think I might steal that idea because I think that's amazing. But it'll be a mom memoir. Mom memos. Mom memos.
My memoir. I like it. That's hard to say.
Whatever.
Makes my
Mom
mouth feel
messages.
weird.
Whatever.
Mommy.
We'll figure it out.
Boom.
The title will come later.
Yep. And I like I said, for me, it's therapeutic because it also puts me more in that gratitude state of mind, right?
Yeah, it's so important.
So yeah, I'm glad that's awesome. All
Well,
right. Well, you give that man a hug. You give those kids a hug. And you keep being you. Are you back at work?
Just remotely still.
How is that? Well, that's a different story. That's a different time because I thought about that and I'd be like, that's interesting because.
Yeah, it is.
All right. Well,
I'll
you know
call
what?
you soon, and then we'll keep up.
Yes, please. So hold on. Don't hang up yet.
Thank you, sir.